Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour. I'm your host, Matthew Hawkins, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Ed Carbajal. And on a weekly basis, we try to bring you the news and interviews in the world of combat sports. Ed, how's week 5 of quarantine going?
Not bad. I mean, it is what it is. I'd be lying if I said I'm not getting a little tired of it, but we got some sun here on the East Coast. Rare spring day, so looking forward to running out there and getting some sun in.
When are the barbershops opening up for you?
Not soon enough. Not soon enough. I might take a straight edge to this. My hair's really bad, so if I let it grow out, that's going to become apparent.
Nice. Well, we've been looking for some good news, and I guess the UFC gave us some decent news in the last, 7 days or so. With the announcement that it appears that we're actually gonna get some fights in on television, starting with UFC 249. I'm sorry, on uh, on May 9th. It'll be a pay-per-view event. Prelims look like they'll be on ESPN, followed by the pay-per-view main card, and then they're following up. It looks like with two more events that week. I'm sorry, within the next 7 days, and then following up that next weekend with another fight night. So, you know, I suppose in a world of not a lot of good news, it's a nice little boost of entertainment that we'll be getting.
Yeah, I think we. As I mean, I know. Right, of course, you're going to have folks. Harping on about the safety and stuff, and we did the whole all of last week's podcast about that. Coincidentally, we talked about the UFC and other people trying to flock to Florida, and with Dr. Lucas, and lo and behold, that seems to be what's happening for the next three events. So UFC 249 and whatever they're going to call the next two after that, like within a week's time, they're going to do three events on the. So it's the 9th, the 13th, and the 16th, I believe.
Yeah,
And
and then the 23rd, they got one lined up too.
yeah, so it looks like they're going to try to get back on track. Um, Again, only time will tell. It's if this is going to be a hit or a miss for them. I think obviously if folks pop hot for the virus, then they're going to have some splaining to do. If not, then then everyone's going to be thanks for bringing us some action. I mean, you and I are both pretty honest about yes, we want to see it and stuff, but it's going to be messed up if someone falls sick to it. Coincidentally, Lyman Good was supposed to be on the original UFC 249 before they started doing this do-over card, and he popped hot for coronavirus. Let it be known after the fact, after he got over it. So he said he was sick for about 2 weeks. I wrote about it over at mymmanews.com, but and he's going to donate his blood plasma and stuff to see if it can help out. But I mean, if something like that happens, obviously, I mean the recovery rate's pretty high for the virus and stuff, and we had Dr. Lucas on last week to talk about the medical side of things, but still, I don't know. We'll see if it's worth it. I'm with you though. Like until first bell, you said it last week. Until the first bell and the cage door opens and it's on my TV screen, I don't. I'm not going to even try to do predictions or anything.
No, I mean next week if everything's still on schedule, we'll do a preview show with
Late
some
late
good.
next week.
Late next week, we'll probably
Yeah.
do some beers on a Friday night or something
Mhm.
after the weigh-ins, um, and get that going. But yeah, look, I mean, I don't know if I'm getting numb to the situation, but I don't think we're ever going to get to a point where there's no chance of anybody ever getting the coronavirus. Um, I mean, if we're sitting around waiting until we have zero cases in the country, we might be waiting for the
Gonna be
next
a long time.
500 years. And I mean, maybe that's true, maybe that's wrong, but it just seems to be the case. And we're in a situation now where if they can do it with limited amount of people and do it as safely as possible, if they get an outbreak and all of a sudden 10 people at a show come up with it, then it's not going to look good at all. That's a given. But truth be told, if anybody's going to survive it, I would imagine these athletes in these prime shape and health probably will shake it off fairly easy. Obviously, knock on wood with that. But I don't know. I mean, at some point
Yeah.
we got to try. Someone's got to be the first to try and see what happens. And if it's not the UFC, then it's going to be something like tennis or golf. And um, out of those three, I'm happy it's the UFC. And if we can get 3 events in a week, I mean, my God, that'll be Christmas time to be able to watch, 40 fights, 40 new fights in a week. Um, I haven't been watching a whole lot of MMA. I've kind of taken this time actually to kind of refresh and get excited again for it. I mean, I know we watch it, we love the sport, but um, it had become a routine somewhat. So I don't hate the break necessarily because it's kind of rejuvenated my craving for the fights. So
Yeah,
I
no,
I look forward to that.
I kind of hear you on that. It's funny that you say that because I had been watching all these replays and old fights and stuff like that, and uh, I think I mentioned it on our podcast not so long ago. I can started contributing to 137 p.m. And they had me do. It's not published yet. It's probably going to publish next week. They had me do a lengthy piece, so I had to rewatch a lot of old fights, and I kind of like you. I got burned out, and I was just like, I think I need a break. So I actually started binge watching stuff and playing video games and all this other stuff when I'm not writing for all the sites that I write for. But I hear you, man. I mean, it's definitely a small purge that I've done. I think I'll get amped up again for as we lead into next week, and I start looking at the card more, and which I tweeted it out when they announced the card last week. It's 12 fights so far. I mean, hopefully nothing falls apart, but you know, with what's going on, you never know. But we were talking about it before we went live. Um, the fact that they're still pushing it as a pay-per-view still kind of pisses me off a little. I know everybody's got to try to make money somehow, but for pay-per-view with the ad revenue and the viewership that ESPN is probably lacking and needing, you would think they throw the whole thing on and get all those new eyeballs. But they could put it on ESPN Red the whole event and say, just so you know, this would normally be a pay-per-view, and maybe when things get back to normal, those could be some potential new buyers. But I mean, what do I know? I didn't sell anything for $4 billion lately.
Yeah, it's a. I mean, I would have done stuff differently. I don't mind the UFC 249 card as it stands right now being a pay per view. I would have probably done it in reverse order, though. I probably would have done a fight night on Saturday, a fight night on Wednesday on regular ESPN, and then move that to trend into buying the pay per view on the 16th.
Hmm.
Um, that would have been, that way you start to get eyes, because I think this is going to hit a lot of people next week that aren't even going to realize it's happening. I mean,
Yeah,
we're in a bubble of MMA fans. Um, a lot of people aren't even tuning into ESPN right now because there's nothing to watch. So
yeah,
even your casual sports fans aren't tuning in. I don't think that they're going to necessarily see it. It's not advertised on TV like it used to be when it was, direct TV pay-per-view or viewers choice pay-per-view or whatever system it was coming through. You'd see commercials quite a bit throughout the day as you watch television. You don't really see that. You don't hear it on radio like you used to. So I think it revolves around a lot of the ESPN push, and with the casual, right now you normally have baseball fans tuning into ESPN every night to watch baseball tonight, and they would see the little banner that says UFC pay per view. Those people aren't tuning in right now. There's nothing for them to watch on ESPN. So I think that's a little weird. I would have. I don't. I'm more disappointed with the ESPN Plus Fight Night cards. Um, Give us something on ESPN. Give us some full cards on ESPN to kind of whet our appetite a little bit. Maybe
yeah.
remind
Because
people
what are
that
they showing? Like darts and golf and
no, there's not even that. I mean,
oh
you're
wow.
you're literally watching. I don't even know. I mean, I watched the Sports Center at the end of the night just because
I
there's some
I
NFL stuff and some basketball stuff. But
yeah.
basically, it's talking about Michael Jordan and the documentary going on with him right now. That I mean, that's basically the highlight of the week for sports fans.
Yeah, that's I think I saw some esports thing I watched for like 20 minutes and that was about it. But other than that, like you said, man, that's that last dance or the last horse ride or some shit
The Last Dance. It's
yeah.
great. I mean, if you were a sports fan, I know that wasn't your bag growing up so much,
Yeah.
or even now. But for me as a sports fan, The Last Dance has been outstanding. I hated Michael Jordan. I'm a Laker fan, diehard. He got his first ring beating the Lakers in '91. So from that point on, I was pretty much anti Jordan as much as possible. But yeah, that's I mean that's basically the highlight. I mean I'm looking. All I got to look forward to this till the end of this weekend is when that plays on Sunday. That's 2 hours of some new content. Even though it's old documentary footage, it's new content in the sporting world, and there's just none of that. So I would have if I'm ESPN, I'm doing that. Second of
Yeah.
all, I don't. I mean, I know we had gotten used to like 12 fight cards. I would have been fine if we kind of went the old school route and went back to like a 7 or even 8 fight, cards, and had an extra Wednesday. If they're going to be in Jacksonville that whole time, why not have one on the 20th or whatever? They're going to go the 16th and then the 23rd. Why not have another Wednesday night card? And maybe they'll pop stuff up, but I think having and maybe they're doing a 12 fight pay per view because there's a good chance, kind of as you indicated, of losing a couple of them.
Mhm.
Like you said, you don't want to jinx it, but we lose fights from weigh-ins, uh, and that's just normal stuff. All it takes is any family member of anybody fighting. Um, Coming up with anything, even the common cold at this point, and it's going
Yeah.
to set off alerts to people, and warning signs. So that could happen. Um, but
Yeah.
I mean, as it stands right now, and like I said, we'll get into. We don't want to jinx it, so we'll get into it next week. But
Yeah, we'll do.
that first card is loaded. So
Yeah.
I mean, I hope it goes down smooth. I hope nobody gets sick, and I hope we get the violence that we've been looking for. I
Yeah.
mean, it seems like it's been forever. What we had our last pay per view May 7th, or I'm sorry, March 7th was the Romero Adesanya and the Joanna
Yeah, and then
Wheelie fight.
the UFC Brazil card, which was only the last 3 fights were kinda like, really good. The rest were it was happening at the beginning of all this
That's
and
right. So that happened like on the 12th or the 13th or 14th,
the
something like that.
14th, yeah.
The 14th. So I mean, it's really we've been a whole 6 weeks. I mean,
Yeah.
it feels like it's been months, but it's just funny how it is. I mean, like I said, when we started watching the sport, you were waiting around 3-4 months for a card, and you didn't know the card until Bruce Beck or basically announced it on the opener of the pay per view. So I look forward to it. I hope it goes down. If everything goes smooth in Florida, then that's a plus. They've got a venue they can set up. They don't have to move around. They don't have to travel. Um,
Mhm.
and right now, I don't see there's nothing else going to be booking that venue. I wouldn't think. So
Yeah.
I saw that there was a rumor that they might do something in June, like in Pennsylvania or something. And
I
uh,
saw that too. Actually, it was I know my editor put it out there because he's in that area for my MMA news. But I mean, somebody will leak something. I'm sure. By the time we're done, we were only talking about Florida as a possibility, and then 2 days later, after we recorded last week, so I'm sure the pacing will be the same this week for the podcast. But as I
Yeah,
mean,
I wouldn't if I'm the UFC and I've got an empty arena and that's what we're doing. I'm not
mhm,
jumping around. I
yeah,
would stick to your guns because all of a sudden you start threatening. You get into other states, you get into
yeah,
other cities. If things are going well in Jacksonville and they're quiet and no one's getting sick
yeah, because I thought
and
they were going to do the island in June.
I wouldn't even do the damn island. Why put more
Yeah,
people on a
yeah.
plane for an extra 6 hours or wherever the hell it is?
Can't see the shirt, but that's what this is Hans tournament shirt that I'm
Uh,
wearing.
Yeah, I would stay in Jacksonville, pump out as many shows as you can there while things are good. If the first 1 and 2 and 3 go down smooth, but I wouldn't be jumping state to state right now and putting people on
No,
planes. And
yeah, that's sound advice. I mean, who listens to sound advice again from us? But yeah, I agree with you, man. But I mean, if you have a go-to spot, then that's the way to go. It looks like Bellator is going to have their go-to spot on a studio lot out in your neck of the woods. Obviously, no fans still, but I mean, I think they're playing it safer. Wait until July at least for closed-off events and to try to resume some type of normalcy. Did you catch wind of that, and what did you think?
Yeah, I saw that too. I wish it was sooner than July. I mean, I don't know. Again, I'm not a doctor. I wish we could always have these conversations with Dr. Lucas. He seems to kind of be the calming voice
Yeah.
when I get hyped up or you've got a question. But I just I wonder. The numbers are dropping. The beaches are open out here now. I mean,
Oh, are
things are.
they? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, you're not supposed to show up with a lawn chair and kick it, but you can go walk. You can go walk the beach, and you can go swimming in the ocean. And um, I mean, some of the LA and Orange County beaches up here have never really shut down. I mean, there's tens of thousands of people on the beach. So, I mean, people have their opinions on whether they agree or disagree with those people, and um, I'm kind of beyond judging at this point. I'm more kind of like, let's wait and see what happens
Yeah.
before we overreact. Maybe it'll turn out they're a bunch of dumbasses and a bunch of people get sick, and it was a
Yeah.
huge mistake, or maybe not. Maybe out of the 20 million people on the beach, there'll be 3 people get sick, they'll recover, and we'll go, okay, this is where we're
Well,
at.
yeah, and that's kind of what Dr. Lucas hinted at last week when he was on, was like, we're going to see these people that don't have the numbers. I mean, obviously, I'm in Jersey, number 2 in the whole country with cases and deaths and all the doom and gloom surrounding this virus, especially if you listen to our sorry ass governor. But like, if states like this one in New York see these other states that are easing back in, and folks aren't getting hit or as sick as we're seeing, then obviously, people can try to make more moves. And it's like, I mean, not for nothing. I think Dana White was talking to TMZ, and where he said this similar to what you said about, like, you have to try something. So, I mean, I guess it makes some sense to try things in pieces before you go full, before you go full on Florida or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I'm not saying that we should pack a 20,000 seat stadium or arena.
Yeah.
Um, anytime soon. And by anytime soon, I mean in the next, 6 to 8 weeks, let's say. Um, July still seems so far away to me.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
so
I
when I
wanted to
see
go to Vegas in July.
events canceled in July and August, and that's it. In a sense, it somewhat frustrates me because I feel like we don't really know what we're getting into. So why cancel something so far out in time?
Hmm.
Um, I also have a different perspective. MMA for me has become the live experience. I go to
Hmm.
so many that I mean, I like watching it on TV. I'm kind of the opposite of probably the general MMA fan. Most MMA fans prefer the television because they get the better view and they don't have to deal with crowds and cheap beer and all that crap. But I've grown so accustomed to going and being a part of the crowd, so for me, that's kind of where I come from. So that's where it's kind of disappointing when I see stuff getting canceled so much. Now, bringing the fights back, Bellator in July. Um, is cool. I wonder when we get to the point where, okay, Bellator can have one on one of their reservation fights. We do it in an outdoor, open air parking lot. We set the
Hmm.
cage up. We put chairs around there. We space the chairs out, you know, 6 feet or 3 feet, whatever they determine in a couple months what we're looking at, and you start with a crowd of maybe 500 people, and you sell tickets, and tickets, instead of it costing $50, every ticket in the house is 150. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't. It becomes more of a exclusive club initially, and people that are, maybe you regulate, maybe you have a thermometer test at the door or something. I mean, I don't know. We're gonna find out how this is gonna work, but um, I'm glad for Bellator. I'm kind of glad that they're waiting it out. I don't think it
Yeah.
hurts them. They're not in the same situation, I don't think, as the UFC. I think probably getting to save up a little bit of uh, the money that they were spending on stuff might help them in the long run. I have a feeling like we were hearing rumors of of Ryzen, having issues. I
Mhm.
almost feel like this kind of helps because it takes away some of the pressure of forcing out events, um, in a world where we're force fed fights. Um, Whereas like a Ryzen, in my perfect world, there would be like 2 or 3 big events a year, to kind of feed that appetite. And if they could make money off that, that'd be great. Um, so Bellator July is empty studio. Is if we get the fights that we were looking at, and and there was a lot of great ones that have been canceled so far, uh, then
Yeah.
then good for Bellator. And I mean, uh, businessmen aside, when it comes to safety and I mean, I want to say common sense, I kind of you got to lean Coker probably over most of the other promoters out there. He
Yeah.
seems to make a lot of smart moves that that has the fighters' safety in mind. Uh, he was the first company to come out, be openly paying his everybody. We
Yeah.
should try to get Cutman Matt on to see, maybe get an update on the Bellator side of things, how things are unfolding. But I'm just happy to see we're starting to hear rumors of fights coming up, and just see how. I'm curious to see how everything unravels here, because really this will set the stage for other sports. Once
Yeah.
live fights start happening, baseball, football, basketball, hockey, all everything else is going to start seeing, okay, if we do it in certain situations like this, and they're going to get, and money's going to start, they're going to start going, holy crap, UFC is making money now. We got to we
Yeah.
we got to we got to start making money too. So um, I'm just happy to see fights again.
Yeah, I'm happy to see it too. One of the things, one of the things that struck me as odd, and I don't think we got to talk about it last week because we had Doc Lucas on, was well, not odd, but I was kind of hoping anyway. The PFL Pro Fight League. It just jumped in my head now when you mentioned um, sports coming back. You know, they're supposed to be the league format for combat sports and MMA, and they normally don't start till late May, early June. The fact that they just postponed their whole season kind of struck me as odd. I guess they don't have studio options and stuff like that to feature their events, but they're under ESPN. I would think they could have worked something out to still do it closed off, but I don't know. Um, I just found that weird that they postponed a whole season, and that's the basis of their format. Did you see that news and have any thoughts on it?
I did see it. I don't know PFL's financial situation. I think that's always kind of been a mystery, if
Hmm.
we're being honest, as far as where the money's coming from. Um, there's always been kind of the rumor that World Series of Fighting and UFC, or I'm sorry, and UFC had kind of a deal, and then PFL. It was almost like they were a feeder organization in a sense, with guys like Gagey and
Hmm.
Moraes, and some of those guys kind of coming through there, and then some of the UFC guys at points of the dropping down almost to the World Series of Fighting. Rumble Johnson did at a time, Arlovsky in the early days, Josh Berkman, stuff like that, Jake Shields. Um, so I don't know how much they rely on the live gate. I know they don't have giant crowds, but does that extra money play a big role in their finances? That I'm not sure about. Um, UFC can do it. They can sell pay per view. They don't need to necessarily have the gate. It's not going to help them financially, but it's not gonna crush them. I just wonder if the production costs and everything of putting on an empty studio show
Hmm.
for a smaller organization is financially worth it at this point. I think that's why we're seeing Bellator even wait till July, because maybe you do a July event, you do a late July event, you do an August event, and then you're only 2 or 3 events, and then you're firing into getting some crowd again, and
Yeah,
starting to create some
because the,
buzz.
the the thing with them is that they used to comp a lot of seats. I mean, and their tickets weren't exactly expensive. When they were when they do their garden thing, it's always the theater. It's not the arena. So it's like I don't know. I just feel like they probably could have moved forward, but
Well, the
and
cancellation.
they're supposed to be paying a stipend to everyone that didn't get cut. Although Fanside reported that they cut a third of the roster that they had started for this season, which is kind of like
Well, in a sense, I don't mind that. I think that that's actually a fair business move if you're going to cancel the season or postpone the season.
Mhm.
By cutting those fighters, you're giving them the opportunity to
Fight
perhaps fight
somewhere
in the
else. Yeah.
UFC, or they have a chance to even if it's fighting for King of the Cage or uh, going to Thailand and fighting in is something. They have a chance to go compete other places and try to earn a paycheck.
Yeah.
The bigger names, the Rory McDonalds, the Coopers, some of their champs and stuff. Those guys, I imagine they're gonna take care of those guys and make sure that they're happy and not going broke. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about the financials on the inside. Behind the doors on how much that goes. I mean, let's just say hypothetically the UFC is funding PFL
Mhm.
right now. The UFC doesn't want to fund PFL. They're saying that they don't have enough money. They're struggling. You know what I mean? So if that's some of their money source, the UFC might have been going, "Hey, this $3 million a year or whatever we're giving you to fund your tournaments, that's off the table right now. We don't have. We're negative in the books for
Yeah. I mean,
2020."
I feel like the PFL thing is probably not. I mean, I don't know where they're. I mean, because with Peter Murray and all those guys involved, and they're trying to do a reality TV thing. I don't feel like that's probably the thing that they're doing, especially with guys like Jake Shields and people that I mean, there's a lot of their fighters are openly anti UFC, especially if you look at the interviews with like guys like Ray Cooper and stuff. I mean, uh, what's his
But then
name?
where's their money coming from? Because it just, I mean,
I
there's
mean,
no
well,
other organizations giving out $1 million
yeah,
checks to 7 weight classes.
I mean, they
That
do it. They seem to do investing rounds a year. I get a lot of the press releases and stuff from them. So usually when they get folks, that are not publicly, announced, but there's people throwing money at them. And obviously the deal with ESPN is got to be mutually exclusive somehow. So I know they're still supposed to be producing some kind of content. When they made the announcement of postponing the season, they're still supposed to be producing some kind of content for ESPN, but yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, it's I want them to succeed because I actually like that format a lot. I think it's probably the best for competitors. It's the best format out there. That's why Lance Palmer likes it and Gray Cooper likes it, and all of last season's champions like it. Kayla, who's from that competed all her life for judo in the Olympics. So yeah, I mean, I would prefer to see them succeed. So, I mean, wherever their money's coming from, I just hope they have enough to actually return in 2021, like they said.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm rooting for them too. I feel like them being on ESPN, the UFC has something involved with them. I think
Mm.
the UFC, at least they had to probably sign off on them signing with ESPN. Um,
Well, you never know. I mean, it's ESPN and owned by Disney. I mean, if they could shut down Dana White, you never know who's making this calling the shots there.
yeah, I'm just saying, the UFC could have signed with a lot of people, and I mean, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I'm just speculating. So
But I mean, talking about folks with getting opportunities to do something, uh, our boy Uncle Chael has been putting on events, and I mean, I know the matches were pretty fast, and there's a few submissions. We're talking about obviously the highlight was the main event, Craig Jones versus Vinnie Magalesh. I know you watched it because we were both tweeting about it on Twitter, and that was not pretty, man. I don't know how Vinny Magalesh didn't tap to the first one because he actually had that submission locked in twice. So whatever happened the first time, it happened worse than the second time.
well, yeah, because I mean, I'm watching it, and I'm sitting here and I'm watching it, and he puts him in the with Craig Jones, you're just like, okay, he's gonna attack the legs. You know
Yeah,
what's going on, and he grabs Vinny's ankle, and I'm watching it, and I'm going, his foot's facing the wrong direction. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I've
yeah.
seen we've all seen flexible elbows, and we've seen flexible, legs and for like knee bars and stuff that's kind of made you like wince a little bit, but you go, oh my god, okay, they're just super flexible.
Yeah.
I can't really think of many times like a flexible ankle really doesn't exist. I mean, there's guys who have
No,
pain thresholds, but if your ankle spun the wrong way on your leg,
his foot was
it's
backwards.
okay. Okay. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
watching it. I'm going,
yeah.
holy shit. And
His
then the match keeps going, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe I just saw it wrong.
and and if you listen to Chael did the commentary by himself for the whole thing, and he actually before that happened he told a story of how he went against Greg Jones. That's how he met him at I think it was the ADCC tournament or something to that effect. But he had to fill in for I think he filled in for Vinnie or someone. But that's how he met Craig Jones, and they went at it, and he said that Jones locked in the submission twice on him before Chael just eventually verbally tapped out because Jones didn't crank it. He locked it in and was like, "All right, I know this guy's wasn't my initial opponent, and he probably doesn't know these things." And Chael knew Craig Jones was being nice, and I kind of saw that happening with this one, but given all the leg locks don't work and all the trash talk that Vinny was doing leading up to this, having won against Gordon Ryan too, I feel like Jones maybe turned it up a little, but if you rewatch, a lot of people were like, "Oh, what are they talking about?" I think Jones was saying to Vinny was like, "I heard it, it popped and I turned it all the way around. Are you?" He was kind of checking if he was all right, and then when they went at it again, because I think the first time Vinny kind of waved it off, and then the second time it looked like Vinny Magalesh was kind of like, yeah, because you could see he stopped pushing off on that leg. It was already getting discolored, and I mean that's why they called it a verbal submission because he didn't tap, but it looked like after the fact he was like, no, it's that's completely separated down there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I had a couple takes from it. One, I thought the referee did a horrendous job. First of all, you got to find out what they're talking about. If you miss seeing the guy's ankle facing the wrong direction on his leg.
He did ref like all the matches though.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think in that match specifically
Yeah.
though, like there was a lot of chatter going on. I mean,
Yeah,
we don't
yeah, yeah.
see, you don't see matches where guys are talking.
He should have said like, what's the chit chat? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then maybe the first one you let slide. Okay, like he got out of it. Maybe they're just having competitor back and forth. The second one, basically Jones let go. I think either because I mean, you're the grappler. You break a guy's foot, you start spinning it around his leg. I mean, unless you're looking to maim the dude. I mean, I don't know what the physical. I mean, you in my mind, you start talking about possibly losing a foot. When you start
Yeah. I
I
mean,
mean, he was a hard crank away from twisting that thing, 720 around his leg, and it
yeah.
being one of the most gruesome injuries we've ever seen in combat sports.
Well, there's some pretty. I mean, it in that world it's weird because there's some pretty. There are some dudes out there, and sometimes you can only go by what you're seeing. Like, there's folks that'll attack a submission. I mean, kind of like what Greg Jones does do. He did it against Rumble Johnson. Like he fits it in, and like so he knows Rumble Johnson's not a high level grappler like he is. So when he fit in the heel hook, if you rewatch that match, he fits it in. He makes sure it's secure, and then he torques it slightly. And as soon as he sees a reaction from Rumble, he lets go. But Vinny's from this world. Again, he's got a win against Gordon Ryan.
Mhm.
So maybe I mean, have you ever seen Paulo Miao's matches where he's had he's had limbs bend completely all the other ways that they're not supposed to bend, but still moved like a regular person afterward.
Yeah.
Whereas, so I mean, it could have been one of those things where Craig Jones was like, okay, maybe I can turn this and it doesn't bother him, and maybe he's just really flexible. There's a guy at my gym that's he used to be he came from the world of ballet. So when we're doing leg locks on him, he actually his foot has turned the other way and he's been fine. Like he's tapped because he knows he's supposed to, so that
Mhm.
you know what I mean. But at the level of competition they were in, I just don't know where their minds were, and I feel like after the second one, you could see it in Greg Jones' face too. He was just like, "You're done, dude. Like,
Yeah, no,
stop."
that's what I picked up. Like he was
Yeah.
kind of going, "What do you want me to do? I mean, are we gonna,
Am I gonna break it? Yeah.
am I gonna permanently maim you? Do you want to walk? I mean, and that's where the referee for me, because this wasn't like this was like a firefight MMA fight where there was just nonstop crazy action. I mean, you
Yeah.
had stops in the action where dudes were like holding 30-second conversations practically with each other.
Yeah.
You got a doctor there. If Craig Jones is verbally saying, "Bro, your ankle is
Yeah.
broken," then I feel like the referee should be close enough to the action there to go, hey, timeout. Let's have a doctor come in. Because when they showed his ankle at the end of the night, it wasn't a pretty sight. It was
No, and
swollen crazy. It was purple.
I was looking for like updates. Like I checked his socials and stuff, and I wanted a message of promotion to be like, how is he? Because I mean, the thing that sucks is, and I hate to bring up what we started with, but it's like, you don't really want to be around doctors and hospitals right now with everything going around. You know what I mean?
That's my other take on it is like
Yeah.
we want to stop dudes from having to go in and have reconstructive ankle and knee surgery right now, if possible. And Jones was
Yeah.
obviously being, I mean, Jones, if that was Paul Harris, Vinny's leg is, he probably, I mean, it's probably
Yeah.
amputation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No.
that's where the
I
dot,
don't.
and
I mean, I hope it was a separation, like just all foot separation. Like just there's ligaments and tendons and stuff, but like stuff like that. I hope there wasn't. I hope there wasn't anything so bad that there's actual bones that have broke that requires pins and all that stuff. Because then, I mean, and not for nothing, Vinny is somebody that fights in MMA. So I mean, his go-to his last 2 years he fought in the PFL. He made it to the finals in 2018. He made a decent run in 2019, but I mean, for him, I mean, I guess this was him doing something with them having postponed their season, and now he's not going to be able to do anything.
yeah, I mean, hopefully it was a sprain or some crazy. I mean, hopefully maybe he has rubber ankles, but yeah, it was bizarre. My other take from the whole event, and probably one of the biggest shocking upsets I've ever seen in my life,
Oh yeah,
of combat was Austin
yeah.
Vanderfort
I
um,
wasn't too surprised at that though.
submitting Richie Martinez. You could have won a lot of money if you thought he would submit him. I didn't think it was. I thought there
I
was a
I
chance he.
actually I couldn't find a sports book for me to place a bet on, but I actually wanted to.
I mean, I've seen Martinez submit everybody in the
Yeah.
world practically. So I didn't see that happening.
The only,
I thought that Vanderfort could win with the
yeah.
overtime rules and
Mhm.
just how strong and muscular he is. I thought he could escape stuff. I didn't see him being able to finish Richie
I
Martinez. I
Well,
mean
the
that.
only reason I kind of wasn't surprised was because I followed his career before he was in Bellator. He used to fight over at Victory Fighting Championships, and actually the interviews on this YouTube channel. If you scroll down and look at the videos, you'll see the when I talked to him for his last fight there, and he used to fight at 170. He walks around like 195 or whatever. He fights at 185 now in Bellator, but he's having stood in front of him. I mean, his frame is right for grappling, and like you said, I mean, he's a beast. He's a monster. And so if you rewatch that, those first two sub attempts that Boogeyman went for, those were kind of locked in, and he kind of just scramble muscled his way out there was no technique involved in that. And I think that's where he was able to survive during the regular time. So it looked like his plan worked, because obviously, he was using his athleticism and stuff to get Martinez to the end, where he would be fatigued enough to kind of force his younger. I mean, hey, not for nothing, these guys have been competing for a while, and everybody knows. I think Henner and his Henner Gracie and his brother. There's a whole thing on their YouTube channel where they talk about the Boyd belts and how belt rankings in jiu-jitsu can modify based on size and strength now, because everybody knows something. So I know Vanderfort's only a purple belt, and Martinez is a black belt in 10th Planet, but when you start doing that athleticism and age, they kind of obviously leveled out. So
Yeah, and uh, I think Martinez took the fight against him on shorter notice. He may have taken him lightly.
yeah,
Him just not being a name, maybe hearing, you know what I mean? Like we know Vanderfort. I mean, generously, mainly because he's married to Paige Van Zant, is how a lot of people know him. Uh,
yeah,
we know him from watching him fight, and
yeah. The UFC, I missed that promotion. They had that square cage. I used to love that.
But I mean, this is a situation to me where that win right there, like boosts his value for Bellator. I mean, you've got the talking point alone, and the is gonna help him move up the ranks in the Bellator
Mhm.
middleweight class. All of a sudden, a match, there's some fights there that start to look a little bit, interesting with him. When you throw in his submission game, we knew he had good wrestling, tough dude, undefeated. But when you start saying, okay, well, maybe this dude is actually one of the best submission grapplers in the world, um, that opens up a lot of doors and stuff. So I was super impressed by him. I like the pacing of the event. I like that we're not in for like a 4 hour, 5 hour, uh, you know,
Yeah. I
grappling
love the
event.
pacing of submission on the ground.
He kicks in. What was there, about 7 matches or so that got done in about 2 hours. Um, obviously the length of the matches contribute to that, but
Yeah.
the no downtime, and it sounds like the only reason there is any downtime is because they're actually sanitizing the cage in between matches. So um, Chael's doing a good thing keeping it on. Again, like if that can go down, why can't we start getting into the certain things like, I understand MMA events require more um, judges, and there's some more people that need to be around
Well, the risk of injury is greater too, so they definitely need more people than, Chael just had the one doctor on standby, but
correct, but you don't you need commission, and you need
yeah,
there's you,
you need
the judge.
ambulances. You usually have to have 2 ambulances on standby, so
I would think that they have an ambulance on standby for if submission underground.
yeah, I'm saying like most MMA events require 2 because, that way there's one's there while
There's always
healing.
one there. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, correct. So, yeah, I was glad to see it though. It was fun to watch. I kind of forgot about it. Got home about 3:30 my time. Popped it on. It was a couple matches in, but got to see all the big names. So, um, it's cool. It sounds like we got one coming up. What, on the end of next month
May
or
31st, Submission Underground 14. I mean, I think the move to Fight Pass has been awesome. I gotta try to see if I can do something with. I mean, I've interviewed Jake Smith and Chris Lencioni before, who were on that card. I know they would be down to come on the podcast, but I really would like to get to Chael if he wasn't such a busy. I mean, Chael's a hustler, even though he's not fighting. He just does more. He's he needs to
yeah.
write another book on navigating the space in MMA, because he's UFC, Bellator analyst, ESPN, like he's all over the place. So
Well, I think that kind of wraps us up for this week. Again, we look forward to next week, hopefully having a preview show for UFC 249. Get to
yeah,
do some picks and really try to break down a
I'll leave
exciting
that banner.
potential fight card. Um, until then, look at our affiliate links on our YouTube page, and you can follow us at Combat Hour on Twitter, Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour on Instagram. Follow me at MMA Hawk 21 on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow Ed at Carbazol on Twitter and Carbeerzol on Instagram. Um, let's cross our fingers, Ed. Everybody keep staying as healthy as possible right now. Numbers continue to drop, and we get a action-packed Saturday night on May 9th.
Yeah, if we don't lose it, we'll do a stream Friday night, like a couple of beers on hand, a couple of jokes. I'll break your balls a little bit, and yeah, and hopefully we have a main card to make fun of on the UFC's website with the bad stats and all.
Well, I mean, even if there's no fight, we can always do that.
Yeah,
But,
that's true.
all
Yeah,
right, man.
we'll do that Friday anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, take it easy. I'll talk to you next week.
Cool. Later.